nanalo ng Family Feud ng Team The Clashbackers ng 200,000 pesos.
Family Feud, 5:40 p.m.
Welcome to my episode that is called
Nagmamano pa.
That's okay.
President Donald Trump and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen have agreed on a trade deal. The announcement from their meeting in Scotland caps months of negotiations and sets 15% tariffs on exports from the EU to the US. Trump says the EU will invest an extra $600 billion in America and buy $750 billion worth of energy. Israel and several other countries have conducted airdrops of aid into Gaza. Israel says it will establish secure routes for convoys for humanitarian supplies. The military says it will also pause its operations in some parts of Gaza each day. Israel denies World Health Organization findings that the territory is suffering mass starvation. The leaders of Thailand and Cambodia are traveling to Malaysia for talks on a border dispute that has led to days of clashes. Dozens of people have been killed and thousands have been displaced. US President Donald Trump has urged both sides to end the fighting or he won't approve trade deals. This is DW News from Berlin. You'll find more on our website. That's at dw.com.
It's a deal they can accept. I'm not sure it's a deal that people are rejoicing in. Clearly, we've seen the reaction from Metz, who has broadly welcomed the deal. They have a very significant auto sector, which is obviously going to be heavily affected and benefit perhaps from having a 15% tariff. But then you've also heard from the French, who've said this is an unbalanced deal. And in terms of tariffs on one side versus tariffs on the other, it is asymmetric.
Trucks carrying aid are loaded in Egypt before heading to the Rafah crossing into Gaza. The UN says Israel has eased some restrictions and about 100 trucks have entered. At a soup kitchen inside the strip, crowds held back by barricades desperately reach through with pots and buckets, screaming for help. But there is not enough to go around. Many people are starving, and the number of people, mostly children, dying is rising. And after ceasefire talks crumbled again,
There is no policy of starvation in Gaza, and there is no starvation in Gaza.
on the latter point at least, the UN and aid organizations say otherwise. Amand Bazol from Médecins Sans Frontières says the food finally getting in is much needed, but the situation is so bad that people will need help eating.
And some of them, like, we will have to work with them to reintroduce food. The system is not even able to digest anymore the food. We've reached that level of starvation for the population.
Speaking in Scotland on Sunday, Donald Trump says he doesn't know what will happen after the collapse of ceasefire and hostage release negotiations with Hamas.
You know, they had a routine discussion the other day, and all of a sudden they hardened up. They don't want to give them back. And so Israel's going to have to make a decision.
His exact words were that I know what I would do, but I don't think it's appropriate that I say it. He did not elaborate further on what he would have done or on what he expects Ally to do in the war in Gaza. Netanyahu had said there would be consideration of alternatives in Gaza without really elaborating much detail as the humanitarian crisis has unfolded amid Israel's military assault.
At least 6 people have been killed at a mass shooting at a food market in Bangkok. The incident happened at Otor Khor Market, a popular spot for tourists in the Thai capital. 5 security guards were killed, and the gunman took his own life, according to police. No tourists were killed or injured in the incident. And staying in Thailand, thousands of Cambodians in Thailand assemble at border checkpoints trying to get home. They're fleeing armed clashes that have escalated into the worst fighting between the two Southeast Asian neighbours in more than a decade. Thai and Cambodian leaders are holding talks in Malaysia to try and reach ceasefire. More than 30 people have been killed in the fighting, most of them civilians. Global stocks are rising on the back of the US-EU trade deal. Investors like the certainty that the agreement brings, but their optimism could be tested this week because it's a pivotal few days for markets. We have policy meetings from the Fed and the Bank of Japan coming up, and the monthly US employment report. On top of that, we have a fire hose of tech earnings with results out from Amazon, Apple, Meta, and Microsoft. It's going to give investors a lot to chew on. They kick off trade talks in Stockholm today, aiming to extend a tariff by 3 months. Reporter David Lauder is there.
So this is the third set of major talks that the U.S. and China are scheduling. The Trump administration embarked on a set of talks with China back in May where they agreed to kind of dial things down a bit. They lowered the tariff rates and they agreed to resume the flow of critical minerals to the U.S. The U.S. side had some restrictions on things like software used for semiconductor design and aircraft engines and other sort of high-tech goods that China needs from the United States. So here we are, we've done that, the materials are flowing again, so now where do we go? This is a relationship that's been very fraught with a lot of problems over a lot of years, and the Trump administration really wants China to rebalance its economy and turn it into a consumer economy so that it's consuming more goods from the rest of the world and not just manufacturing stuff and pushing it out into foreign markets. That's a very tall order and it's not easily accomplished. China doesn't really acknowledge that it has an overcapacity problem, so they're going to need a lot more time to talk.
Most car makers focus on bells and whistles to attract young drivers, but Slate Auto is going the opposite direction. The Bezos-backed startup bet big on affordable electric pickup trucks. The vehicles are bare bones, think crank windows, but the pickup has price appeal. Starting at less than $20,000, Slate already has a 100,000-person waitlist. There is one small problem. The price tag includes a $7,500 EV tax credit, which, under Trump's big, beautiful bill, expires September 30th. Reporter Nora Eckert is in Detroit.
Come with the screen that you would expect for your navigation and controls in the vehicle. It's really sparse and stripped down, but that sort of nostalgic old pickup truck appeal is what's resonating with a lot of shoppers, and especially younger shoppers. With this tax credit going away, how much can a company like Slate absorb, and how much are they going to pass down to the consumer? So it's somewhat easier for a big company like GM that is producing millions of gas-powered pickup trucks or SUVs to absorb some of these costs versus a pure EV player like Slate or even a Tesla. It's a tougher pill to swallow now that they don't have this $7,500 boost that would have supported their customers. And for the shoppers interested in a Slate, a lot of them are going for the vehicle because of this price point. I mean, these are people that are really looking at their budget and saying, hey, mid-20s is actually not going to be doable for me. I could only really stomach that sub $20,000 price point. So, it could eat into the 100,000 plus reservations that Slate has for its trucks.
And for today's recommended read, a special report from Reuters on the conflict in Ukraine and how, during a pivotal push by Ukraine, to retake territory from Russia in 2022, Elon Musk ordered a shutdown of the Starlink satellite service, leaving Ukrainian troops with a communications blackout that disrupted their counteroffensive. You can read the full story on Reuters.com or the Reuters app. For more on any of the stories from today, check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast player, and we'll be back tomorrow with our daily headline show.
That's it for your news updates. To see more stories, open Google News.